Hello, chosen ones. I'm so grateful you've decided to tune in today. There's a reason you're here, and I believe it's because God has led you to this moment. If you're watching this, it means He has something profound to reveal to you. So, I encourage you to stay with me as we delve into some deep spiritual reflections and explore the faith that sustains us through the challenges of life. Now, we all know that we often think of God as an endless source of blessings. It's easy to recognize His presence when everything in life is going smoothly. Blessings flow abundantly and our hearts are full. But what happens when life turns challenging, when disaster strikes, or when the blessing seems so far out of reach? Do we question whether God is still at work in our lives? Have you ever wondered if, in those moments of struggle, God has left you? Today, we'll explore how even in the darkest times, God is quietly preparing us for the blessings He has destined for us. The video you're about to watch highlights 7 powerful signs that indicate God is at work in your life, even when things seem bleak. These signs aren't always obvious, but they're there, guiding us through the tough times. One of the first signs is when you feel like giving up. We've all been there. The road feels too long, the challenge is too heavy, and the storm too fierce. It's in these moments that God is often closest. As I once said, pain insists upon being attended to. In these moments of suffering, God is shaping us for something greater, something beyond what we can see or imagine. These aren't just random hardships. They are part of a divine purification process, preparing us for the blessings that lie ahead. Another powerful sign that God is preparing us is when He reveals the enemies and obstacles in our path. Sometimes the people closest to us may turn away, or situations we thought were stable begin to fall apart. This isn't a punishment. It's God's way of clearing the path, of protecting us from distractions that could prevent us from receiving His blessings. We are being prepared for something greater, even if it doesn't always make sense in the moment. And what about dreams and visions? God often communicates with us in ways we don't expect. Just as He spoke to Joseph through dreams, He may be speaking to you in your quiet moments of reflection or even in your sleep. These dreams might seem confusing, but they're not random. They're glimpses of the greater plan God has for you. Now, before we dive deeper into the other signs, I encourage you to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment with 777 below. If you're new here, please subscribe, as we're about to explore these spiritual signs in more depth. Let's begin this journey together now, as we unravel the mysteries of faith and God's divine timing. Let us embark on a journey to uncover the 7 spiritual signs that reveal the mysteries of faith and the divine timing of God. These signs are not coincidences. They are messages, guiding us toward His greater purpose. Stay with me as we begin this powerful exploration together. The first sign that you are on the verge of a breakthrough is the overwhelming feeling of wanting to give up. It may seem counterintuitive, but in our journey of faith, the moments when we feel the most exhausted, the most doubtful, and the most tempted to quit are often the very moments when we are closest to God's greatest work in our lives. It's a universal experience that we all go through at some point. You've worked hard, you've prayed, and you've faced countless challenges only to find yourself standing at a crossroads. Fatigue begins to set in, doubt creeps in, and there's a voice in your heart urging you to walk away. But what if that very feeling is not a sign of failure, but a sign that you are right at the edge of something incredible? What if the breakthrough you've been waiting for is just beyond the struggle you're facing right now? I want to share with you a truth I have discovered through my own personal experiences and reflections. Life's greatest blessings often come to us not at times of ease, but in moments of hardship, in moments when we feel weakest. This is when God's work is most profound. It's in the trials that God is shaping us, molding our character and preparing us for something far greater. These hardships are not meant to crush us, but to refine us, much like a jeweler refines a precious stone. The process is intense, but the result is pure and beautiful. It's in these moments of struggle that we often don't realize how close we are to the breakthrough that God has been preparing for us all along. Think about the story of Job in the Bible. Job was a righteous man, a man who lived faithfully according to God's will. He had everything, a family, wealth, and health, until he suddenly lost it all. His wealth, his children, his health, Everything was taken from him in an instant. Job was in complete despair. He didn't understand why God allowed such suffering, and yet, in the depths of his pain, he chose not to give up. Instead of turning away from God, he held on to his faith. And through that immense suffering, he was refined. In the end, Job's blessings returned far beyond what he had before. It wasn't until he had endured the hardest of trials that he received the fullness of God's blessing. This is the essence of faith, the unwavering belief that even in the darkest moments, God is still at work. When you feel like giving up, it might very well be that you are standing on the precipice of a blessing that you cannot yet see. It's often said that the night is darkest just before the dawn. Your breakthrough, your answer, your blessing might be so close, just beyond the moment of weariness. I've learned from experience that the greatest growth comes not in times of comfort, but when we are pushed to our limits. God is refining us in those moments, preparing us to carry the blessings that are coming our way. This moment of wanting to give up isn't just about physical exhaustion, it's also about emotional and spiritual fatigue. The weight of the world may seem unbearable, and the challenges may seem insurmountable, but I want you to hold on to this truth. Your weakness is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of strength. It is through weakness that God's strength is made perfect. It's in the moments when you feel you can't take another step that God is at his most powerful, lifting you up, guiding you through the storm. Many times, when we're struggling, we start to doubt our own abilities, our worth, and even God's plan for us. But this doubt, this moment of wanting to give up, is actually a critical turning point in your spiritual journey. It is often the final test before the manifestation of your blessing. You are being tested, yes, but more importantly, you are being shaped. Every difficulty you face is an opportunity to grow deeper in your faith, to rely more fully on God, and to become the person you are destined to be. It is not in the absence of challenges that we grow, but in the face of them. It's easy to get lost in the despair of the moment, but I encourage you to step back and look at the bigger picture. These feelings of exhaustion and frustration are not the end, they are the preparation for something incredible. Just as gold must go through the fire to be purified, so too must we endure the fire of trials to be prepared for the greatness that lies ahead. The Bible teaches us that God works all things together for the good of those who love him. Even in your toughest moments, God is working on your behalf, shaping you for something extraordinary. So I urge you today, when you feel like giving up, don't. Press on, for you are closer than you think to the blessing that God has destined for you. Your struggles are not in vain. They are part of the journey, part of the process that will lead you to the life God has planned for you. And when that blessing comes, it will be worth every tear, every sleepless night, and every moment of doubt. The road may be tough, but you are not walking it alone. God is with you, refining you, strengthening you, and preparing you for something beyond your imagination. Keep going, keep trusting, and know that your breakthrough is closer than you think. Your blessing is on its way. Let me ask you now, in the face of your own struggles, are you ready to press on, trusting that God's blessings are on the other side of your pain? Let's begin this journey together, knowing that every step brings you closer to the life you were meant to live. Keep faith and never give up. In the face of life's greatest challenges, there is a story from the Bible that has always stood out to me as a testament to unwavering faith. It's the story of Job, a man who endured unimaginable suffering and loss, yet remained steadfast in his trust in God. When we look at Job's life, we see that his faith wasn't merely tested by external trials, but by the very depths of human suffering. His story serves as a profound example of what it means to trust God, even when everything seems to fall apart. Job was a man who lived righteously, following God's will in all things. He had everything one could desire, a loving family, wealth, health, and peace. Yet, in an instant, he lost it all. His children perished in a tragedy, his wealth was stolen, and his body was struck with painful sores. Job found himself at rock bottom, isolated, broken, and in agony. For many, this would have been the moment to curse God, to turn away, or to give up on faith altogether. Yet, Job did not. In his darkest hour, Job's response was not one of bitterness or rejection of God's plan, but a profound expression of faith. The Lord gave and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. This powerful declaration wasn't a sign of resignation, but a testament to Job's deep understanding of God's sovereignty. Despite losing everything, Job refused to deny God. He didn't understand why he was suffering, but he trusted that God had a purpose. This is where Job's faith differs from what many of us experience when we go through trials. Job's faith wasn't dependent on his circumstances. He didn't worship God because of the blessings he had. He worshipped God because he understood that everything he had was a gift from the Creator, and even in loss, God remained worthy of worship. The faith that Job exhibited wasn't a faith that expected God to prevent all suffering. It was a faith that understood that suffering, while painful, is often a part of God's greater plan, a plan that we cannot always see in the moment. Job's story reminds us that our faith is tested not just in moments of comfort, but in moments of extreme difficulty. It's easy to trust God when everything is going well, but when the storm hits, when the winds of adversity blow the hardest, that's when the true test of our faith occurs. What strikes me most about Job's story is that even in the depths of his despair, he didn't give up on God. He didn't allow his pain to cloud his trust. It's easy to question God in moments of hardship, to wonder if he has abandoned us. But Job's response shows us that pain doesn't necessarily mean punishment, nor does it indicate God's absence. In fact, it can be a sign of God's refining work in our lives, shaping us for something greater. Job's trials were not meaningless. They were a part of God's divine plan to test and strengthen his faith. There's a powerful lesson in this. When we face difficulties, when we feel that everything we've worked for is slipping away, we are invited to trust God even more deeply. Job's faith wasn't perfect. He wrestled with his emotions, he questioned God, and he mourned deeply. But in the end, Job's unwavering trust in God's sovereignty led him to restoration. After his suffering, God blessed him with even greater blessings than before. His family was restored and he received even greater wealth, but more importantly, Job's faith was refined. He came to understand God on a deeper level, and his relationship with God was strengthened. In our own lives, when we face challenges, we must remember that these moments are not the end. They are simply the refining process that prepares us for something greater. We may not understand why we're going through what we're going through, but we must trust that God has a purpose. Sometimes the answers aren't immediate, but we must hold on to the truth that God is with us through it all. Just as he was with Job, he is with us in our suffering, and he will never leave us. Job's story teaches us that faith is not about understanding everything or having all the answers. It's about trusting in God even when we don't understand. It's about choosing to worship him not because of our circumstances, but because he is worthy. God's plan for us is bigger than what we can see, and sometimes we have to endure hardship to fully receive the blessing he has prepared for us. So, as we go through our own struggles, let us remember Job's example. Let us hold firm to our faith, even when we feel like giving up. Let us trust that God is at work, even when it feels like he is silent. Our faith is being tested, yes, but it is also being strengthened. And just like Job, when the trial is over, we will look back and see that God's blessing was worth the journey. When you feel as though you cannot go on, remember that you are not alone. God is with you, and he is refining your faith for something far greater than you can imagine. Hold on to that hope, because the blessing that awaits you will be more than you could ever dream. Keep trusting, keep believing, and keep moving forward in faith. The best is yet to come. In times of hardship, it's natural to feel as if we've been abandoned. When life throws its hardest challenges our way, we may begin to question God's presence, wondering why he would allow us to suffer. We might feel lost, confused, or even betrayed. But here's a profound truth that I've come to understand through my own journey. Those difficult moments aren't signs of God's abandonment. Rather, they are divine opportunities for God to grab our attention and prepare us for something greater. God doesn't leave us in times of trouble. On the contrary, he is actively at work, guiding us through the challenges. It's easy to assume that hardship means we're on the wrong path, or that God is punishing us. But in reality, these moments are often part of his plan to refine us, to shape our hearts, and to prepare us for the blessings that are coming our way. God's ways are higher than ours, and sometimes we can't see the bigger picture when we're in the midst of the storm. But just as a skilled craftsman shapes a piece of raw material, God uses these difficulties to mold us into the person we need to become to receive the incredible blessings He has in store for us. Consider the story of Joseph in the Bible. Joseph was a young man who had a great dream, a vision of greatness. But instead of immediately walking into his destiny, he faced betrayal, false accusations, and imprisonment. At every turn, it seemed as though his dreams were slipping further away. Yet, through it all, Joseph never lost his faith in God. Even in the darkest of times, Joseph understood that his suffering wasn't a sign that God had abandoned him. It was a sign that God was preparing him for something far greater than he could have imagined. And eventually, his suffering led to him becoming second in command over Egypt, a position from which he could help his family and an entire nation. Like Joseph, we must recognize that when difficulties arise, it's not the end of the road. In fact, it could be a sign that God is closer to us than ever before. The struggles we face are not meant to destroy us, but to help us grow and become more like the person God intended for us to be. In our pain, we are often being shaped for a future that holds unimaginable blessings. Just as a seed must break through the earth before it can grow into a tree, we too must go through trials before we can fully step into the purpose God has for us. When we feel like we're at our lowest point, it's crucial to remember that these moments are not wasted. God is at work in our lives even when we can't see it. The difficult circumstances are an opportunity for us to surrender our will to God's greater plan, to trust in His timing, and to lean into His guidance. It's through the process of refinement that we are made stronger, more resilient, and more prepared for the blessings that are on the way. So, if you find yourself in the midst of a trial, I encourage you not to lose heart. Understand that God is using this time to mold you, to draw you closer to Him, and to prepare you for something far greater. These moments of hardship are not signs of God's absence. They are signs of His presence, His love, and His active work in your life. Trust the process and know that God is preparing you for a blessing that will far exceed your expectations. The second sign that you are on the brink of a breakthrough is that God begins to reveal the enemies or negative influences in your life. This may seem unsettling at first, but it is not meant to harm or discourage you. It is a divine act of protection. As we walk through life, there are moments when everything seems to be falling into place, and other times when it feels like obstacles are rising against us. But in my own journey and reflection, I've come to realize a powerful truth. When God is preparing to pour out His greatest blessings, He often removes the things and people that no longer serve His purpose for us. This revelation is not a setback, it is a setup for something greater. If you've recently found yourself seeing people's true colors, facing unexpected opposition, or experiencing the loss of relationships that once seemed unshakable, take heart. God is not punishing you, He is positioning you. What He is about to bring into your life cannot be weighed down by the wrong influences. Trust that this unveiling is His way of clearing the path for what's ahead. When we are on the verge of receiving something extraordinary, God will sometimes allow us to see the people or forces that stand against us, those who do not wish us well or who may try to undermine our progress. It may feel unsettling when people we trust show their true colors, or when relationships begin to fall apart. But in these moments, I believe that God is not only revealing who our true enemies are, but also providing us with the clarity to remove these obstacles from our lives. This is an important part of God's preparation for the greatness He has in store for us. Consider the story of Jesus and His disciples. Before His arrest and crucifixion, Jesus was surrounded by His closest followers, the very people who had walked with Him, learned from Him, and shared in His ministry. Yet, in His final moments, Jesus revealed the betrayal that would come. He knew that Judas, one of His own disciples, would betray Him. He also knew that Peter, His close friend, would deny Him 3 times. Despite their loyalty and their love, they were not exempt from the spiritual challenges and tests that Jesus Himself was facing. In a way, this revelation from Jesus wasn't meant to discourage His disciples, but to prepare them. God revealed these hidden forces not as a form of punishment, but as part of the divine plan to fulfill His purpose. By revealing the betrayal and the coming trials, Jesus was ensuring that his disciples would not be blindsided. He was preparing them for the trials ahead so they would not falter when the storm came. This is a powerful reminder that sometimes God allows us to see the negative influences or the enemies around us, not to make us fearful, but to give us the strength and clarity to face them head on. When God reveals these enemies to us, it is not a sign that we are weak or unworthy. In fact, it's often the opposite. It is a sign that God is getting us ready for something greater. Just as Jesus knew that he had to endure betrayal to fulfill his mission, we too may need to face difficult people or situations in order to step into the next phase of God's plan for us. This revelation helps us identify the obstacles that could potentially block our path to the blessings and purpose God has set before us. This may be a painful process, and it's not always easy to accept when people or situations we trusted begin to reveal their true nature. But remember, God doesn't allow this to hurt us. He allows it to help us. The removal of these negative influences makes space for the blessings he wants to pour into our lives. Think of it as cleaning out a house before moving in. You must clear out the old and unwanted things to make room for the new and beautiful things to come. Likewise, God is clearing out the negative energy, unhealthy relationships, and toxic environments that could prevent us from receiving his blessings. Throughout my own life, I've come to realize that every time God revealed an enemy or a negative influence, it was always followed by a greater understanding of his purpose for me. Sometimes these revelations come with pain, but they always lead to deeper wisdom and greater strength. They force us to grow, to mature, and to become more discerning in how we navigate our relationships and environments. This is all part of God's divine protection. He is guarding us from harmful influences and preparing us for the fullness of his blessings. It's important to remember that these revelations are not meant to make us bitter or angry. They are meant to help us grow in discernment, wisdom, and faith. When God reveals an enemy, it is an invitation to pray, to seek his guidance, and to trust in his protection. We must remain focused on God's purpose for us and not allow the negativity of others to derail us from the path he has set before us. So, the next time you find yourself in a situation where people or circumstances are revealing themselves in ways you didn't expect, don't be discouraged. Understand that God is working in ways you may not fully see right now. He is removing obstacles, revealing enemies, and protecting you from harm. This is all part of his preparation for the incredible blessings that are about to unfold in your life. Trust him, remain faithful, and allow him to clear the path ahead. God is preparing you for something far greater than you can imagine, and the unveiling of these enemies is just a sign that the best is yet to come. In life, there are moments when the people we trust the most, the ones who are closest to us, turn out to be the ones who hurt us the deepest. This painful truth is not something that's easy to accept, but it's something that God allows us to experience at times for reasons we may not always understand. When betrayal comes from those we love, it feels as though the world is falling apart, and it's easy to feel lost, confused, or even abandoned. However, as I reflect on my spiritual journey, I've come to realize that these moments of betrayal are often part of God's divine plan. Just as Jesus was betrayed by those closest to him, it was through this very betrayal that he fulfilled his mission and completed the purpose he was sent to fulfill. Let's look at the story of Jesus and his disciples. Jesus, the Son of God, spent 3 years with his disciples, his closest companions. He taught them, shared his heart with them, and revealed his mission. They were there with him through many of his miracles, witnessing his compassion, his wisdom, and his power. And yet, it was from this very group of disciples that betrayal would come. Jesus knew, even before it happened, that Judas, one of his trusted disciples, would betray him. He also knew that Peter, another disciple, would deny him 3 times before the rooster crowed. This revelation of betrayal was not a surprise to Jesus. It was part of a much larger plan that he had come to fulfill. What stands out to me in this story is that, despite the betrayal and abandonment by his closest followers, Jesus remained unwavering in his mission. He did not let the pain of betrayal deter him from his purpose. Instead, he embraced it as part of the path that would lead to the fulfillment of God's will. Jesus knew that this betrayal was necessary for the greater good. It was through his suffering, his rejection, and his sacrifice that the ultimate victory would be won. Without the betrayal of Judas, without Peter's denial, the cross would not have been the place where salvation was secured for all mankind. This realization has deepened my understanding of how God works in our lives. When we are betrayed by those we trust, when our closest relationships are tested, it can feel like a personal attack, a sign of failure, or even the end of a meaningful connection. But through the lens of faith, we begin to see that these moments of betrayal can serve a greater purpose. They are not random events or meaningless tragedies. They are often a necessary part of the divine plan. Just as Jesus' betrayal led to his ultimate purpose, our own experiences of betrayal can be part of the process that God uses to fulfill his greater plan in our lives. When we face betrayal, God is not absent. He is present in our pain, just as he was with Jesus in his darkest moments. He knows our hurt and our disappointment, and he uses those very experiences to refine us and bring us closer to our purpose. The betrayal of Jesus didn't define him. It was simply a part of his story, a part of the journey that would lead to victory. Similarly, the betrayals we face don't define us either. They are just chapters in our story. Chapters that, when we trust God through them, lead us closer to the fulfillment of the purpose he has for us. I've come to realize that God allows us to experience betrayal not to harm us, but to prepare us. When we face rejection, when the people we thought we could rely on turn their backs on us, we are being refined. These painful moments strip away the false securities we have placed in others and point us back to God, our true source of strength and refuge. It's through the experience of betrayal that we are often led to a deeper reliance on God and a greater understanding of his love and faithfulness. Through the story of Jesus, we also learn the power of forgiveness. Even in the face of betrayal, Jesus didn't hold on to bitterness or resentment. He forgave Judas, he forgave Peter, and he forgave us all, offering us the gift of grace. This example shows us that while betrayal can be painful, it is also an opportunity for growth. It's a chance to let go of anger and hurt and to embrace the transformative power of forgiveness. In doing so, we open ourselves to the healing and restoration that God has in store for us. Just as Jesus' betrayal was a stepping stone toward his purpose, the betrayals we face can be the very things that propel us forward into the fullness of God's plan for us. They shape us, mold us, and refine us, making us stronger and more resilient in the face of life's challenges. So when betrayal comes, remember that it is not the end of the road. It is merely a part of the journey that God is using to fulfill his greater purpose in your life. In conclusion, I encourage you to embrace the lessons that betrayal can teach you. Instead of viewing it as something that diminishes your worth or purpose, see it as part of the divine process that is preparing you for the blessing that awaits. God is working in your life even in the painful moments, and he is using those experiences to refine you, strengthen you, and draw you closer to his will. Trust him, for he is always present, even in the most painful of circumstances, and he is guiding you toward a purpose far greater than you can imagine. When God reveals the enemies in our lives, it is not meant to leave us feeling defeated or fearful. In fact, it's a divine opportunity for us to remove the obstacles that could stand in the way of receiving the incredible blessings God has prepared for us. These revelations are not signs of failure, they are moments of clarity, moments where God is giving us the chance to identify and eliminate the negative forces around us. This is part of God's plan to prepare our hearts and minds for the blessings he is about to bestow upon us. God's revelation of our enemies is not just about identifying those who may wish to harm us. It's also about recognizing the barriers, whether they are unhealthy relationships, harmful habits, or negative influences that prevent us from walking in the fullness of his purpose for our lives. In these moments, God is not just protecting us, he is equipping us to step into the greater destiny he has in store. It's like being given the wisdom to recognize the hurdles in our path so that we can overcome them and move forward with greater clarity and purpose. The process of revealing our enemies is, in essence, an act of purification. God allows us to see what's standing in our way, whether it's people who do not wish us well or situations that are not aligned with his plan for us. When we understand who and what is truly hindering us, we gain the strength and discernment to make decisions that are in alignment with His will. These revelations are a chance for us to clear out the clutter, remove toxic influences, and create space in our lives for God's blessings to flow freely. Consider this: just as a gardener must prune away dead branches to allow healthy growth, God uses these moments to prune the unnecessary distractions in our lives. It might feel uncomfortable, even painful at times, but it is part of the process of growth. When we remove these barriers, we are preparing ourselves to receive what God has promised. The closer we get to our blessings, the clearer the path becomes, but only if we are willing to let go of what is no longer serving us. I've found that these moments of revelation often come at times when we are about to experience breakthrough. They come when God is ready to elevate us to new heights, but we must first be willing to deal with the obstacles that could derail us. This process of clearing the path is not just about physical or external forces. It's also about mental and emotional preparation. It's about aligning our hearts with God's purpose, removing doubt, fear, and negativity, and stepping forward in faith, knowing that the best is yet to come. In these moments of revelation, God is giving us the grace to prepare for what is next. The revelation of enemies, whether they are people or obstacles within ourselves, is an opportunity to clean the slate, remove the clutter, and make room for what God has destined for us. It's a call to take action, to let go of what's holding us back, and to embrace the blessings that God is bringing our way. Trust in the process, for through these revelations, God is refining you and preparing you to walk into the fullness of His plan. The third sign that a breakthrough is near is the presence of dreams and visions. When God is preparing to move in your life, He often speaks in ways that go beyond the natural, through symbols, messages, and impressions that stir deep within your spirit. One of the most profound ways God communicates with us is through dreams and visions. These spiritual messages often come when we least expect them, in the quiet moments of rest, in the stillness of the night, or even during our waking hours when we are fully immersed in thought. These are not random occurrences. They are a part of God's divine communication, a way for Him to speak directly to our hearts, guiding us toward a greater purpose. If you have been experiencing vivid dreams, powerful impressions, or an unshakable sense that God is revealing something to you, pay attention. He may be preparing you for something significant, offering you direction, confirmation, or a glimpse of what is to come. I've come to understand that dreams and visions are not simply the random musings of a tired mind. They are often profound messages that carry spiritual significance. These glimpses into our subconscious can reveal truths, ideas, and directions that we may not fully comprehend at first, but they have a deeper meaning that God is trying to impart. It's easy to dismiss them as mere coincidence, but I believe that God uses these moments to speak to us in ways that we may not be open to during our waking hours. The Bible is full of examples where God used dreams and visions to communicate His will. One of the most powerful examples is the story of Joseph. Joseph, the son of Jacob, was blessed with the ability to interpret dreams. His own dreams as a young man were visions of greatness, of being elevated above his brothers, but these dreams were not immediately understood. Instead of receiving the accolades and respect he might have expected from his family, his dreams led to betrayal, hardship, and years of suffering. But through it all, Joseph never lost faith. His dreams were part of God's plan for his life, and despite the difficult road ahead, those visions ultimately led him to the fulfillment of his divine destiny. Joseph's story teaches us an important lesson. While the messages we receive in dreams may not always be immediately clear or comfortable, they are significant. They are God's way of showing us glimpses of the future, of revealing His purpose for us in a way that bypasses our limited human understanding. These visions are not to be taken lightly. They often carry wisdom, foresight, and insight that we may not be able to access in our normal waking state. In my own life, I've come to recognize the power of dreams and visions. There have been moments when I've had vivid dreams that left a lasting impression on my spirit. These dreams weren't just fragments of my mind processing the day's events. They were messages that carried with them a sense of urgency and purpose. They weren't always easy to interpret, and at times I wasn't sure of their meaning, but looking back, I can see how they were part of God's preparation for what was to come. Sometimes these dreams come when we are at a crossroads, when we're unsure about a decision, or when we need direction. It's in those quiet, vulnerable moments when God whispers to us through our dreams, giving us the clarity we need. But there's also an important caution to keep in mind. Not every dream is a message from God. Some dreams may simply be reflections of our thoughts, desires, or fears. It's essential to discern the difference and to seek God's guidance when we are unsure about the meaning of a particular dream or vision. God doesn't always reveal everything at once, and sometimes the message may not be immediately clear. Dreams can often be symbolic, and understanding their meaning requires patience and reflection. It's not always about a straightforward answer. Sometimes God is teaching us through the process of seeking, questioning, and reflecting. As I've learned, the answers to these dreams may not come right away, but they always come at the right time. Visions, too, can be a powerful way that God communicates with us. These are often more vivid and intense experiences where God's presence is felt strongly, and we are shown something beyond the natural realm. They may come in the form of a vivid image, a scene, or a feeling that speaks to us deeply. These moments can be life-changing, leaving us with a deep sense of purpose and direction. In these times, it's important to remember that God is speaking to us, and we must listen. These dreams and visions are not just fleeting thoughts. They are part of God's divine plan to guide us toward the path He has set before us. If we open our hearts and minds to receive these messages, we will find that they often lead us to deeper understanding, greater faith, and a clearer vision of our purpose. Ultimately, dreams and visions are a gift from God. They are a way for Him to communicate with us beyond our everyday experiences, giving us insights and wisdom that transcend the limits of our understanding. As we continue on our spiritual journeys, let's remain open to these divine messages and trust that God is using them to guide us, protect us, and prepare us for the future He has in store. In the journey of faith, there are moments when we receive glimpses of our future, glimpses of something greater than we can fully comprehend at the time. These glimpses often come in the form of dreams or visions, just as they did for Joseph in the Bible. Joseph, a young man with a heart devoted to God, received dreams that foretold of a great future. However, at the time, he could not understand the full meaning of these dreams. These visions were not immediately clear, and they didn't come with instructions or explanations. Instead, they were seeds planted in his heart, which, over time, would grow into a deeper understanding of God's purpose for his life. Joseph's story is a powerful example of how God works in mysterious and often unexpected ways. As a young man, Joseph had dreams in which his family and even the nations of the world would bow down to him. These dreams were filled with grandeur, with promises of a future where he would rise to a position of great authority. Naturally, Joseph shared these dreams with his brothers and his father, believing them to be a sign of what was to come. But instead of encouragement, his family reacted with jealousy and anger. His brothers, already resentful of their father's favoritism toward Joseph, became consumed by envy. This led them to betray him, selling him into slavery and leaving him to face unimaginable hardships. At the time, Joseph could not have understood why he was experiencing such betrayal, why his dreams, which seemed so promising, were leading him into a life of hardship. He had no way of knowing that his journey would be filled with suffering and loss, but through it all, Joseph held on to his faith in God. Even when the path before him seemed unclear and full of obstacles, he trusted that God was leading him somewhere. He understood that the dreams he had were not just fantasies, but glimpses of a greater destiny. A destiny that would not be realized through comfort, but through perseverance and trust in God's plan. Joseph's experience teaches us an important lesson about faith. Sometimes God gives us dreams or visions that feel so real, so full of promise, yet they don't make sense in the present moment. These glimpses of the future can be confusing, even painful, because they often come when we least expect them or in times when our circumstances seem contrary to what we've been shown. But like Joseph, we must remember that God's plan is not always linear. Just because things aren't unfolding as we expect doesn't mean that God has abandoned His purpose for our lives. Often, the very trials that seem to derail us are actually the pathways leading us toward the fulfillment of His promises. In Joseph's case, his dreams came to fruition in the most unexpected way. After years of suffering and being wrongfully imprisoned, he was finally called upon to interpret Pharaoh's dreams, which ultimately led to his rise to power in Egypt. It was through his position of authority that Joseph was able to fulfill his dream. His brothers, who had once betrayed him, came to him for help during a time of famine. And in that moment, his dreams were realized. But it wasn't just about the fulfillment of his personal ambition. It was about God's greater purpose to save many lives, including the lives of his family. Joseph's dreams were a vision of his future, but the path to that future was paved with hardship, misunderstanding, and betrayal. This is a critical aspect of our own faith journey. When God gives us a vision for our lives, we may not always see the full picture. We may only see the seed of what is to come, not the path that leads to it. The journey may be long, and it may be filled with unexpected turns, but it is in the midst of these challenges that God is shaping us, preparing us for the future He has planned. The story of Joseph reminds us that God's timing is always perfect, even when we don't understand it. The dreams Joseph had were not immediately fulfilled, and in the meantime he had to endure rejection, betrayal, and pain. Yet through all of this, God was at work, guiding him, strengthening him, and preparing him for the role he would play in His grand design. In our own lives, we must hold on to the same trust. When we receive a vision of something greater, we may not know how or when it will come to pass, but if we remain faithful, if we continue to trust in God's timing, we will see the fulfillment of His promises in ways that are beyond our comprehension. So, when you find yourself receiving a vision, a dream, or a glimpse of the future, know that it may not come to pass immediately. There may be a season of waiting, of trials, and of confusion. But trust that just like Joseph, your dreams are part of God's divine plan. He is working behind the scenes, shaping you for the future He has destined for you. Keep faith, keep hope, and trust that God is leading you toward a purpose greater than you can imagine. Just as Joseph's dreams were fulfilled in ways he could never have predicted, so too will God's promises for your life unfold in His perfect time. When God reveals a vision or dream to us, it's often a deeply personal experience. These revelations carry significant weight, offering us a glimpse into the future or a deeper understanding of God's will. However, not everyone around us may be ready to understand or appreciate the fullness of these divine messages. It's crucial to recognize that these dreams are not meant for public consumption right away. In fact, there's wisdom in keeping such revelations to ourselves until the right time. Sharing them prematurely with others can lead to misunderstandings, jealousy, or even ridicule. The story of Joseph illustrates this perfectly. When Joseph first received his dreams about his future, he shared them eagerly with his brothers and father, thinking they would be as excited about his vision as he was. However, his brothers didn't receive the dream with joy. Instead, they were filled with jealousy and resentment. They saw his dreams as a threat rather than a blessing, and this led to them betraying him. This early sharing of his dreams brought him great pain, and it was only after much suffering and personal growth that Joseph came to understand why it was important to keep his dreams between himself and God at the start. In our own lives, we may receive visions or dreams from God that are meant to guide us, to prepare us for what lies ahead. But these dreams are often a test of faith. God may reveal to us what we cannot yet understand, but this doesn't mean the world is ready to accept it. Not everyone is prepared to receive the magnitude of what God has in store for us. There will be people in our lives who might not understand or appreciate the significance of our spiritual journey, and sharing our deepest revelations with them may lead to confusion or even discouragement. The message here is clear. When God speaks to you through dreams or visions, it's a personal moment between you and Him. These dreams are often signs of preparation. They are part of a spiritual process that is testing your faith, strengthening your relationship with God, and molding you into the person you are meant to be. At this stage, sharing them with others may dilute their impact or invite unnecessary conflict. It's better to hold these revelations close to your heart, praying for understanding, wisdom, and discernment in how to proceed. As I reflect on my own spiritual journey, I've learned that there is great value in patience. There are moments when God gives us a glimpse of what's ahead, but the full picture is not yet clear. Trusting in God's timing is essential. Sometimes the process of waiting and holding on to these dreams in silence is part of the growth. It's through this waiting period that our faith is tested. How much do we trust God with the visions He's given us? Are we willing to wait for His timing? Or do we feel compelled to share them before they are fully realized? Remember that the dreams and visions God gives you are precious. They are not meant for the approval or understanding of everyone around you. Instead, they are meant to strengthen your faith and guide you toward the purpose He has set before you. Keep them close and allow God to reveal the right time for sharing. As you hold on to these dreams, continue to pray, trust in God's plan, and let the journey unfold in His perfect timing. The revelation will come, and in the end, it will be clearer than you could have ever imagined. In our walk with God, there are times when we feel alone, as if the world around us has suddenly gone silent, and the people we once trusted and relied on seem to drift further away. It is a feeling that can be unsettling and confusing. When you experience this feeling of loneliness, it can seem like something is wrong or that you have been abandoned. These are the 4 signs that God is isolating you. However, in my own faith journey, I have come to understand that these moments of loneliness are not a sign of God's absence, but rather part of His divine plan. It is in these moments that God often calls us into a deeper, more intimate relationship with Him, preparing us for the greater purpose He has for our lives. The feeling of being isolated can come when we are at a crossroads, when we are about to experience a shift in our lives, or when God is preparing us for something extraordinary. It may seem as though people around us are becoming distant, or that our usual sources of support and connection are no longer available. We might even begin to question why we are experiencing this loneliness, why things are suddenly different. However, it's important to recognize that these periods of isolation are not a punishment or a sign of abandonment. They are an invitation to focus more deeply on God's purpose for our lives. I've learned that isolation is often God's way of setting us apart for a specific task. It is in these quiet moments, when the noise of the world fades away, that we can truly hear His voice and understand the path He has set before us. When everyone else is busy with their own lives, when we feel alone or left behind, that is when God can do His most powerful work in us. He uses these moments to refine us, to clear away distractions, and to draw us closer to Him. In the Bible, we see many examples of people who were isolated by God for a purpose. One of the most profound examples is Jesus Himself. Throughout His ministry, Jesus spent time in solitude, often retreating to pray, to reflect, and to prepare for the next step in His mission. Before He began His public ministry, He spent 40 days in the wilderness, alone and fasting. It was during this time that He was tempted, tested, and prepared for the great work that lay ahead. This time of isolation wasn't a sign of weakness or abandonment. It was a time of spiritual strengthening and preparation for the greater purpose God had for Him. Similarly, in our own lives, there will be times when we are called to retreat into a period of solitude. We may find ourselves feeling disconnected from the world around us, unsure of where we belong or why things have shifted. But this is the moment when God is inviting us into a deeper relationship with Him. He is drawing us away from the noise and distractions so that we can focus on His voice and hear His guidance more clearly. It is in this solitude that we can receive the wisdom, strength, and direction we need for the next phase of our journey. This process of being set apart may feel uncomfortable, even painful at times. It can be difficult to embrace the silence and solitude, especially when we long for connection and companionship. However, God's purpose for this isolation is always for our good. He is shaping us, preparing us for something greater than we can currently see. Just as a seed must be planted in the dark soil before it can break through to the light, so too must we sometimes go through periods of darkness and solitude to fully emerge into the fullness of the purpose God has for us. During these times of isolation, we may also find that God is helping us let go of unhealthy attachments, false dependencies, or relationships that may be holding us back from fully embracing His plan. These moments of solitude offer us the opportunity to reflect on our lives, to reassess our priorities, and to surrender our own will to God's greater purpose. They are moments of spiritual growth, where we are being refined and prepared to step into the next chapter of our journey. It's also important to remember that isolation is not the same as loneliness. While loneliness can feel empty and painful, isolation in the spiritual sense is about separation for a purpose. It is God's way of drawing us near to Him so that He can equip us for the work He has called us to do. During these times, we can find comfort in knowing that God is with us, even when we feel alone. He is using this time to strengthen our faith to deepen our trust in Him, and to help us grow into the people He has created us to be. I've learned that in isolation, God is teaching us to rely on Him alone. He is reminding us that our ultimate source of comfort, guidance, and strength comes from Him, not from the people or circumstances around us. While relationships and community are important, God uses moments of solitude to help us deepen our connection with Him and learn to lean on His presence for all we need. As you walk through your own periods of isolation, I encourage you to embrace them as opportunities for growth. Instead of seeing them as a time of emptiness or abandonment, see them as a time of preparation. God is setting you apart, calling you into a deeper relationship with Him and preparing you for the next chapter of your journey. Trust that He is using this time to mold you, refine you, and equip you for the amazing purpose He has designed for your life. Remember, isolation is not a punishment but a divine invitation. When God sets you apart, it's because He is preparing something incredible for you. Trust in His timing, lean into His presence, and know that through this period of solitude, He is doing a powerful work in you. You are not alone. God is with you, and He is using this time to prepare you for the blessings that are coming. There comes a time in our spiritual journey when the battles we face are not external but deep within. These are the moments when the real battle takes place in our own hearts and minds. Experiencing your spiritual warfare is the fifth sign that we will continue to explore. It is not a battle of physical strength or worldly opposition, but a battle between faith and fear, hope and despair. I have come to understand that these internal spiritual battles are often a necessary part of our growth. They serve as a refining process, a way for God to strengthen us, sharpen our faith, and prepare us for the greater purpose He has set before us. When we go through these battles, it can feel like we are torn apart by conflicting emotions. On one hand, we may feel a deep sense of faith and trust in God, believing that He is guiding us through the storm. On the other hand, fear and doubt may creep in, challenging that faith and threatening to pull us away from the path God has called us to. This is the heart of spiritual warfare, the constant struggle between what we know to be true in our hearts and the lies that our minds try to convince us of. These internal battles are not to be feared but understood. I've learned that God allows us to face these struggles because they push us to rely more on Him and less on ourselves. They teach us to surrender our fears, our doubts, and our weaknesses to Him, knowing that He is the source of our strength. The Bible tells us that the battle is not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces of evil, Ephesians 6:12. This is not just a theoretical struggle, it's one that affects every part of our being. It's a battle that challenges our identity, our purpose, and our trust in God's plan. When these battles arise, it's easy to become overwhelmed. It feels as though the weight of the world is pressing down on us, and we might question why God is allowing such turmoil within. But I've found that these moments are actually opportunities for growth. It's in the heat of the battle that our faith is refined and purified. Just as gold must be heated to remove impurities, so too must we go through these struggles to become the people God intends for us to be. One of the most challenging aspects of spiritual warfare is the way it often manifests as a battle of the mind. It's in our thoughts that the enemy tries to sow seeds of doubt, fear, and despair. The mind becomes a battleground where we wrestle with questions of our worth, our purpose, and our place in God's plan. This can feel isolating, as if no one else understands the war we are fighting within. But the truth is that these battles are universal. Every believer, no matter how strong their faith may seem on the outside, faces these inner conflicts. It's important to recognize that these battles are not a sign of weakness. In fact, they are evidence of spiritual growth. The enemy will always try to attack the areas where God is about to do His most profound work. This is a sign that God is preparing something significant in your life. The greater the battle, the greater the victory that awaits. The struggle you face today is simply part of the preparation for the blessings that God is bringing your way. It is in these moments of spiritual warfare that God is drawing you closer to Him, teaching you to rely on His strength and equipping you for the future He has planned for you. During these battles, it's crucial to remember that you are not alone. Even when it feels like you are fighting this war on your own, God is right there with you. His presence is constant even when we don't feel it. I have learned that in the midst of these battles, prayer becomes a powerful weapon. prayer strengthens our connection with God, allowing us to speak our fears and doubts aloud, to release our worries into His hands, and to trust that He is in control. The more we pray, the more we invite God into the battle, allowing Him to fight on our behalf. It's also important to remember the power of Scripture during these times. The Bible is filled with verses that remind us of God's promises, of His faithfulness, and of the victory that is already ours in Christ. When the enemy attacks, we can stand firm in God's word, using it as our shield and our sword. Just as Jesus faced temptation in the wilderness and overcame it by quoting Scripture, we too can find strength in God's word when we are in the midst of our own battles. As you face these internal spiritual battles, I encourage you to keep your eyes on the bigger picture. Remember that this battle is not the end, but part of the process of your transformation. God is using these struggles to strengthen your faith, build your character, and equip you for the purpose He has called you to. The enemy may try to make you feel defeated, but God is using these moments to refine you and prepare you for something greater. When fear, doubt, and despair come flooding in, remind yourself that these are the very areas where God is working in you. Do not shy away from the struggle, but embrace it, knowing that God is using it to shape you into the person you were meant to be. The victory is already won in Christ, and these battles are simply a part of the journey toward the blessings that await. In conclusion, spiritual warfare is a reality for every believer. It is not something to be feared, but something to be understood as a part of our growth. These battles are refining us, drawing us closer to God, and preparing us for the future He has planned for us. Trust that God is with you in the fight, and that every victory, no matter how small it may seem, is part of His larger purpose for your life. Keep fighting, keep praying, and keep trusting that through these battles, God is bringing you into a place of deeper faith and greater blessings. In the midst of spiritual warfare, when we feel overwhelmed by doubt, fear, and confusion, it's essential to remember that these battles are not without purpose. Rather than seeing them as obstacles that are meant to break us, we must recognize that they are opportunities for spiritual growth. They are moments when God is doing His most profound work in our lives. Every challenge, every trial, and every internal struggle is an invitation from God to strengthen our faith and deepen our trust in His plan. At first, it may seem like the battles we face are insurmountable, and we may question why God allows us to go through such difficult moments. It's easy to think that God is absent or distant, but the truth is that He is very much present, actively working through the very challenges that seem to threaten us. These times of difficulty are not signs of abandonment, but signs of God's involvement in our lives. He uses these trials to refine us, to strip away the layers of doubt, fear, and self-reliance that can cloud our relationship with Him. In my own life, I've come to understand that when I'm faced with a spiritual battle, it's often a turning point. It's a chance to either surrender to the fear and doubt or to rise in faith, trusting that God is using the challenge to bring about something greater. This is the moment when we are called to grow in our faith, to move from a place of uncertainty to a place of trust. God is not trying to harm us or make us suffer for no reason. He is shaping us into the people we are meant to become, preparing us for the blessings that lie ahead. One of the most powerful truths I've learned in these moments is that God is always at work, even when we cannot see it. When we're caught in the middle of a struggle, it's easy to feel as though God has turned His back on us. But the reality is that these battles are the very place where God is working the hardest. Through our struggles, He is teaching us to rely on Him, to surrender our own understanding, and to trust in His timing. Each step we take in faith, even when it feels small or insignificant, is a step towards spiritual maturity and deeper intimacy with God. This is why it's so important to shift our perspective during times of difficulty. Instead of viewing these battles as setbacks, we must see them as opportunities for spiritual development. It's in the fight between faith and fear, hope and despair, that our faith is strengthened. Every time we choose to trust God in the midst of our struggles, we are building the spiritual muscles necessary for the next season of our lives. The more we trust Him, the more we realize that He is faithful, even in the hardest of times. God uses these moments to reveal areas in our lives that need healing, growth, or transformation. When we are forced to confront our deepest fears or doubts, it's an opportunity to surrender those areas to Him, These battles force us to look inward, to examine the things we rely on outside of God, and to remove those things from our hearts. Through this process, we begin to see more clearly the areas where God wants to work and change us. We begin to understand that the battle is not just external, but internal, and through it, God is shaping us into His image. The beauty of these trials is that they are not in vain. God doesn't allow us to go through difficult times without purpose. In fact, these struggles are often the very places where our faith grows the most. As we face spiritual warfare, we are reminded of our dependence on God, and we learn to trust Him in ways we never have before. It's through these moments that we gain a deeper understanding of God's love, His faithfulness, and His power in our lives. They are moments that bring us closer to Him and teach us the true meaning of surrender and trust. So if you are going through a difficult time, a spiritual battle, know that this is not a time to retreat. This is your opportunity to grow in your faith. God is using this moment to prepare you for what's ahead. These struggles are shaping you, refining you, and making you stronger. They are not meant to break you, but to build you up, to draw you closer to God, and to help you become the person He has created you to be. In conclusion, the spiritual battles we face are not random. They are part of God's divine plan for our lives. Through these struggles, God is working in us, preparing us for the next season of blessings and purpose. So instead of fearing the battle, embrace it as a sign of God's work in your life. Trust in His process, rely on His strength, and know that He is with you every step of the way. Through these trials, He is helping you grow, and ultimately, He is preparing you to receive the blessings He has destined for you. The sixth sign that a breakthrough is near is experiencing unexpected closed doors. At first, these moments can feel like setbacks, opportunities slipping away, plans falling apart, or paths that once seemed certain suddenly being blocked. It is easy to feel frustrated, confused, or even abandoned. But in my own journey of faith, I have learned that closed doors are not always a sign of failure. Instead, they can be divine redirections, a way for God to steer us towards something far greater than we could have imagined. If you have been facing unexpected obstacles or unanswered prayers, do not lose heart. What seems like an ending may actually be the beginning of something even better, something designed by God for your good. Trust that He is leading you exactly where you need to be. The feeling of disappointment when opportunities are shut before us is natural. We all experience it at some point in life. It's easy to become fixated on the opportunities that we've lost, to grieve what might have been, or to question why things aren't working out the way we had hoped. Yet, if we take a step back and trust in God's guidance, we may begin to see that these closed doors are not obstacles, but divine redirections. God has a bigger plan for us, and sometimes that plan requires us to walk down a different path, one that we might not have chosen for ourselves, but one that leads to even greater blessings. There's a powerful truth that I've learned. God's timing is perfect, even when we don't understand it. Often the doors that seem to close abruptly are not closed because we failed, but because God is protecting us from something that isn't in alignment with His greater purpose for our lives. He knows what lies ahead, and He can see things we cannot. When we face disappointment, we may not see the full picture, but God does. He knows that the path we are currently on is not the right one to lead us to the blessings He has prepared for us. So He lovingly closes the door, knowing that He has something better in store. I think of the story of Paul in the Bible. Paul was a dedicated servant of God traveling to spread the gospel. He had specific plans for where he wanted to go and whom he wanted to reach. However, there were times when God closed doors in his ministry. In Acts 16:6, Paul was traveling with his companions and was stopped from preaching in certain regions because the Holy Spirit prevented them. Paul had his own plans, but God had other ideas. At the time, it must have seemed like a setback to Paul, but in the end, God's redirection led him to Macedonia, where the gospel was spread in a new and powerful way. God closed the door not to stop Paul's work, but to guide him toward the greater opportunities He had prepared for him. In the same way, when we encounter closed doors in our lives, we must trust that they are not meant to harm us. God does not withhold blessings from us for no reason. Instead, He lovingly guides us toward the best opportunities, even if they are not what we initially expected. When we are faced with a closed door, it is an invitation to surrender our plans to God and trust in His greater wisdom. It's a chance for us to release our control over the situation and allow God to take the lead. When we do this, we open ourselves up to the possibility of blessings that we could never have imagined on our own. Sometimes the doors that close are not just about the opportunities themselves, but about the timing. We may feel that we are ready for something, but God knows that we are not yet fully prepared for the next step. A closed door can be a sign that God is using this time to prepare us, to build our strength, and to refine our character. When we trust in God's timing, we can be confident that He is preparing us for something greater, something that we may not yet see, but that He is actively working on in the background. It's important to remember that closed doors are not an indication of God's absence. In fact, they are often a sign of His presence and His active involvement in our lives. When God closes a door, He's not abandoning us. He is guiding us. He is leading us toward His perfect plan for our lives, even when we cannot see the path clearly. These closed doors are not the end of the road, they are simply a detour, a redirection towards something better. One of the most profound realizations I've had in my own life is that sometimes the closed doors are actually God's greatest protection. There have been times when I have been disappointed by opportunities that didn't come to fruition, but looking back, I can see how God was protecting me from something that wasn't part of His will for me. He knew that pursuing those opportunities would not lead to the blessings He had in store. Instead, He closed the door and opened another one that led to greater fulfillment, growth, and purpose. In these moments, it's crucial to remember that God is always working on our behalf, even when we can't see it. He sees the bigger picture, and He knows what we need long before we do. Trusting in His plan means surrendering our own understanding and embracing the unknown with faith. It means knowing that when one door closes, it is not the end, but the beginning of a new journey, a journey that will lead to greater blessings and a deeper relationship with Him. In conclusion, closed doors are not setbacks, they are divine redirections. When God closes a door, it's because He has something better in store for you. It's an opportunity to trust in His plan, to surrender your own expectations, and to embrace the path He is leading you down. Trust that God is with you in every closed door, and that He is guiding you toward the blessings that He has already prepared for you. The door may have closed, but another one is about to open, and it will lead you to a place of greater purpose, fulfillment, and joy. In life, we all encounter moments when doors seem to shut abruptly in our faces. Opportunities we believed were within reach suddenly disappear, leaving us with a sense of confusion and disappointment. It's easy to fall into despair in these moments, questioning whether we've missed our chance or wondering if we've somehow failed. However, through my own journey of faith, I've come to understand that these closed doors are not signs of defeat, but rather signs of God's protection and guidance. These moments of closure are not the end. They are simply part of the process that leads us to a path more aligned with God's purpose for our lives. We may feel disappointed when things don't go according to our plans, but it's in these moments that God is actively at work, redirecting our steps. Closed doors are God's way of protecting us from paths that may not be in our best interest or in alignment with the greater purpose He has for us. Just as a loving parent might prevent their child from walking into danger, God closes certain doors to ensure we stay on track, moving toward a future that is aligned with His will. These closed doors are an act of love and care, even if we don't fully understand the reasons behind them. In my life, I've experienced numerous moments when a door I thought was open and ready to walk through suddenly closed. At the time, it felt like a setback, like I had missed an opportunity. But looking back, I see that those closed doors were protecting me from things I couldn't have seen at the time. Things that would have led me down paths that weren't in alignment with God's greater plan for me. Those doors didn't close because I wasn't worthy or because I was doing something wrong. They closed because God was leading me to something better, something more aligned with the person He created me to be. Take, for example, the story of David in the Bible. David was anointed as king by God, and yet, after being chosen, he faced numerous challenges, including the opposition of King Saul. Saul's jealousy led to David being pursued and forced into hiding. There were times when David could have taken matters into his own hands and forced the doors of opportunity open, but instead he trusted in God's timing. When David had the chance to take Saul's life and seize the throne, he chose not to, believing that God would open the door at the right time. Ultimately, God's plan unfolded as David became king, but it happened on God's terms, not David's. The closed doors David faced were not rejections, they were God's protection, guiding him toward the purpose that was uniquely his. Like David, we may encounter situations where we feel that the doors to success, happiness, or fulfillment are closing around us. We might feel like we've missed the opportunity we've been waiting for, but it's essential to remember that God's timing is perfect. The closed doors we face are not a sign of abandonment or a denial of our desires, but a redirection toward a path that is more in line with God's ultimate plan for us. He knows what is best for us, even when we can't see the bigger picture. Just as a parent who closes one door to prevent a child from walking into danger is acting out of love, so too is God, guiding us with love and wisdom when He closes doors. This understanding has deeply shaped my perspective on life's challenges. I now see closed doors as a form of divine protection, not as obstacles to my dreams. When God closes a door, it is often because He has something greater in mind for us. Sometimes the doors we want to open aren't the doors that will lead us to our true purpose. We may be pursuing something that looks promising on the outside, but God knows that it won't bring us the fulfillment or peace that we are seeking. Instead of pushing against the closed door, we are invited to trust that God has a better plan, one that may require patience, faith, and a willingness to surrender our own desires to His will. Furthermore, closed doors can serve as a reminder that we are not in control. Life's twists and turns often remind us of how limited our understanding is. We can plan, strive, and prepare, but ultimately, God is the one who guides our steps. I've learned that instead of resisting the closed doors, we should approach them with trust, knowing that God is leading us where we need to be. Every closed door opens the possibility for a new direction, a new opportunity, and a deeper trust in God's sovereignty. In these moments of disappointment and frustration, we can take comfort in knowing that God is always with us, even when the path is unclear. It's in these moments of uncertainty that our faith can grow. When we trust that God is in control, even when it seems like everything is falling apart, we can find peace. He knows where He is taking us, even when we don't understand the steps along the way. When we face closed doors, we are reminded of God's goodness and faithfulness. He has always been there for us, and He will continue to guide us through every season of life. Trusting in His protection means letting go of the need to control every outcome. Instead, we surrender our plans and our desires to Him, knowing that He is leading us toward a future that is full of purpose, fulfillment, and blessings. Ultimately, closed doors are not a sign of God's refusal to bless us. Instead, they are a sign of His care, protection, and guidance. Every time a door closes, it is simply God redirecting us to a better path. He is not withholding good things from us. He is preparing us for something greater. Our job is to trust Him, to keep our faith strong, and to know that every closed door is part of a divine plan designed to bring us into a future filled with His love and purpose. So, the next time you face a closed door, don't see it as an obstacle, but as an invitation to trust in God's timing. Know that He is leading you to something better, something more aligned with His purpose for your life. Closed doors are not the end of the road. They are simply a sign that God is guiding you to a path that will ultimately lead to greater blessings and fulfillment. Trust the process, trust His plan, and embrace the opportunities that lie ahead. The seventh sign that a breakthrough is near is when God begins to remove harmful things from your life. This can be one of the most difficult and painful experiences to endure, watching people, opportunities, or circumstances that once felt essential suddenly fall away. It's natural to feel confusion, frustration, or even grief when this happens. But through my own journey, I have come to understand that these moments are not meant to harm us. They are meant to protect us. There are things in our lives, relationships, habits, environments, that may be standing in the way of the blessings God is preparing. Though it may be painful and may even lead to a season of loneliness, this process is necessary. God is not taking from you. He is making space for something greater. If you find yourself in a season of unexpected loss, do not despair. Trust that what He removes is nothing compared to what He is about to bring into your life. It's important to understand that when God removes toxic things from our lives, He is not punishing us. He He is making room for what truly matters. Toxic relationships, unhealthy environments, and negative thought patterns can all be stumbling blocks that prevent us from stepping fully into God's purpose for our lives. These elements may offer temporary comfort or familiarity, but they are not aligned with the life that God has planned for us. It can feel like a personal loss, and it may take time to fully comprehend why these things are being removed. But looking back, we often realize that this removal was necessary for our growth. One of the most difficult aspects of this process is the emotional and spiritual isolation that can come with it. When God removes something or someone from our lives, we may feel a deep sense of emptiness or loneliness. We may question whether we're truly alone or whether we've done something wrong. These feelings are natural, but it's essential to understand that this period of solitude is a time of spiritual preparation. God is not abandoning us. He is clearing the path for new opportunities, fresh growth, and new connections that are more in line with the future He has designed for us. Think about a gardener who prunes away dead branches to allow the healthy branches to flourish. Similarly, when God removes toxic influences or relationships, He is preparing us to grow in new ways. These moments of pruning can be painful, but they are necessary for our spiritual health and well-being. When we let go of the things that have been holding us back, whether it's unhealthy habits, fear, doubt, or negative people, we make room for the beautiful and abundant life that God has promised. Just as the branches of a tree become stronger and more fruitful when they are pruned, so too do we grow stronger and more aligned with God's will when we allow Him to remove what is hindering our progress. In my own journey, I have experienced times when God removed things from my life that I thought were essential. At first, I resisted, clinging to what I believed was best for me. It was only after a period of reflection and prayer that I realized that God was clearing the way for something better. These changes often don't make sense in the moment, but as we look back, we see how God was orchestrating our lives for a greater purpose. Sometimes we need to let go of what is comfortable or familiar to make room for what God is preparing for us. Another aspect of this process is the emotional healing that often follows. When God removes toxic elements from our lives, there's often an initial feeling of loss or grief. But in that emptiness, we are given the chance to heal and grow. It's as if the space left behind by these things is now filled with God's love, peace, and guidance. The pain of letting go may feel overwhelming at times, but it's important to remember that God is not only removing the harmful things, He is also filling the void with His presence. Through this process, we become more whole and more in tune with His will for our lives. As difficult as this process may be, it's important to remember that the removal of toxic things is a sign of God's love and care. He knows what we need and what is best for us. When we resist change, we are often holding on to things that no longer serve us or that may even be causing us harm. But when we trust God's timing and allow Him to clear the path, we are opening ourselves to His healing, His blessings, and His guidance. The things He removes are not as important as the things He is preparing for us. This is where faith becomes so crucial. Trusting in God's plan during times of transition or loss is not easy, but it's essential for our growth. In these moments, God calls us to release our fears and doubts and to trust that He knows what is best. He is preparing us for a future that is far greater than we could ever imagine. When we trust in Him, we can have the confidence that every removal, every pruning, and every shift is part of His perfect plan. Through the process of letting go of toxic things, we also begin to understand our own value and worth in God's eyes. We are not defined by the people or circumstances that have held us captive. We are defined by God's love for us. And as we allow Him to remove the things that have been clouding our vision, we are better able to see ourselves through His eyes. We are capable of great things, and God is preparing us to walk into those things with strength and confidence. So, if you are going through a period where things are being removed from your life, whether it's a relationship, a job, a habit, or an environment, know that this is not the end. It is simply a step in God's perfect plan to lead you to greater blessings and deeper fulfillment. While it may be painful and disorienting, trust that God is with you every step of the way. He is removing what is toxic to make space for what is good, what is holy, and what is aligned with His purpose for your life. Embrace the process, trust in His timing, and know that the blessings He is preparing for you are far greater than anything you could have imagined. As we close today's message, I want to take a moment to reflect on the trials and tests that we face in life. I've come to understand that these challenges are not signs of God's absence, but rather His active involvement in shaping us. In the darkest moments, when it seems like all is lost, God is still very present. He is refining us, preparing us for the blessings and purposes He has in store for us. Each trial, every hardship, is an opportunity for growth in our faith. Though the journey may be difficult, it is through these moments that we are shaped and strengthened, becoming more aligned with God's will and more prepared to receive the great things He has planned. Today, I want to encourage you. No matter what you're facing, no matter how dark it may seem, remember that God is right there with you. His presence is not just in the good times, but in the struggles as well. He is working behind the scenes, guiding you, strengthening you, and preparing you for something greater than you could ever imagine. Even when you can't see it, God is always at work, and His plan for your life is greater than any difficulty you may face. I encourage you to keep moving forward with faith, to continue pressing on despite the challenges. You are stronger than you realize, and with God by your side, you will overcome. Keep walking in faith, trusting that He is preparing you for something far beyond your current circumstances. You will emerge victorious, and the blessings waiting for you will be greater than anything you've lost along the way. Now, let us bow our heads in prayer. Heavenly Father, we come before you with grateful hearts, acknowledging your goodness and your faithfulness. Thank you for the challenges and trials you allow in our lives. Though they are difficult, we know that they are opportunities for us to grow in faith, to be refined, and to be made more like you. We trust that through every test, you are with us, guiding us, and preparing us for the great blessings you have in store. Lord, we thank you for your constant presence, especially in the darkest times. Help us to remember that even when we can't see the way, you are always working in the background. Strengthen our faith, help us to trust in your timing, and remind us that the best is yet to come. We surrender our plans to you, knowing that your purpose is greater than anything we could ever imagine. May we continue to walk forward in faith, knowing that you are preparing us for greater things. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. As we conclude today's message, I want to encourage you to continue standing firm in your faith. You are a warrior, and God is equipping you for victory. Keep pressing forward, knowing that the best is yet to come. If today's message resonated with you, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to comment with 777 below to join our community and deepen your understanding of faith, purpose, and how God works in our lives. Let's walk together in faith and continue growing in the knowledge of His will. You are not alone. God is with you, and you are on the path to greatness.